name is Clive from Clive's Art, and thank you again for joining me on the mountain and rock tutorial. In the previous episode we put that in, the background in with a brush, and we put a wash of a bluish type of white over it, and then I proceeded to use the palette knife and put some texture into these mountains, or a rock face of a mountain it should be. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this section now, the dark section first, and very similar to that we're going to put a wash over it just to knock it back, take that shininess off it and make it look as if it's pushed back a touch. So without further ado, I'm going to mix the wash up now. I'll show you what we've done and then we'll get to the canvas. Okay, so at the palette I'm going to use again some matte medium. So this is a very thin medium, there's a polymer base, a resin basically, that's what it is. Check out my YouTube video for matte medium and explain a little bit more detail. But it's a matte version of the gloss glazing medium. There we go. Okay, and again that is actually on YouTube as well, so if we want to look a bit more detail in there. It's a very thin liquid, so we need to put some of that down, not a lot, just enough. And I'm going to use some, in this case I'm going to use a little bit of gesso, and then I'm going to put a little bit of titanium white with that. Give it a bit of a shake. There you go. Come on. It's about a 50-50 ratio, and my little tip for you, always clean the nozzles off your tubs because they can get a bit annoying, and we need to chuck that in the bin. Where's the bin? I put the bin there. So we'll mix the white together. It's easier done in a pot. If you haven't got a pot, then that doesn't matter. And then we pick that up, put that onto our palette. There you go. And we can use that later on for something else. But there's enough paint now on that palette. If you pull the medium into that, give it a nice mix. These are the easier ways of doing it than this, if you use your own method. I just tend to be a little bit lazy sometimes. And I got a bit of raw sienna, and just a touch, don't want too much, yeah, just a little bit like that, and I'm going to just chuck that in there. It's the same thing as we done with the sky, but what I want to do is make this wash a bit more red, so when I go over the rock it's not going to be as bright as the last time we did it. And I'm just cleaning the palette knife off. I tend to get messy sometimes, and I'm not normally a messy painter, so yeah. If you do get any acrylic on your hands, there we are, there's a little tip for you. Get your spray bottle, spray your hands, and then just wipe them down clean as quick as you can before it dries. That way then you won't get any fingerprints and stuff all over your paintwork, you won't get any messy stuff all over your clothes, and my wife will shoot me if I get any more paint on my clothes. That's why I got Pacific painting wear now. Okay, so what I was saying, now we need a brush. This is a number 1 flat or square, and we need to get some water. I'm not very organised today, and as you know I use one of these little pots like that, and that's about all the water I use. So I'm going to put that on my palette, dip the edge of the brush into that, and I'm just going to proceed to thin this down now. Don't thin it more than 45%, use your initiative. You'll know roughly out of experience how thin to take that. Take the excess off, go back onto my board to see how opaque that is, and then I'm going to proceed then to put that over the rock face. Okay, the same as we did with that rock face, we just go over this with that mix. Try not to go over that line if you can help it, and go on to that face because it's already light enough. It is on my painting, it might not be on yours, so use your initiative. Let me just go down that rock face. I know it's a bit like as if there's a big mistake being made there, but trust me, it does work. When this dries, it'll dry misty. Put the brush, I'm just going over that edge, put the brush in the water, get your blending brush and just mix that in. Nice and smooth, like that. And we let that dry. And so back to the palette, I've cleaned it off a little bit. I'm just going to put a little bit of water onto the palette. I'm just going to touch a bit of Payne's Grey into that water. There we go. I'm going to bring a bit of matte medium onto my palette. I'm going to mix that just a touch into that. Because what I want is, I don't want this to over thin because of the 45% rule, as I keep saying over and over and over and over. I'm just going to try that. That means a little bit darker. So what we're going to do with this particular mix is I'm going to put some shadows now into the rock face. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put some shadows into the rock face. So just picking up a bit of that mix and just going in where I think the shadows are going to be. Leaving some of the dark, obviously, that we put in there, because some of that is nice and dark. We don't want to kill that, but we just want to put a few bits and pieces here and there. Some of that, I think it was yellow ochre I used, is a little bit too bright for my liking, so I just need to take that back with some colour washes and be a bit spontaneous with this. Don't kill everything. I don't want it too light. There, I'm just going to defer the eyes slightly. I needed to look more like a rock face. Just bring a touch more black into that mix, just to darken it even more. And just deepen some of these shadows. Now you can, if you're using a palette knife, then obviously you can do this with colours that you think will work, so you don't need to do this process per se. But what I tend to do it this way because I'd like to get those rocks looking as realistic as I can possibly get them, and you can't always do that with a palette knife. A couple of little lines here and there. I've gone over a bit deep there, so let's just darken that up. There we are. Now I'm going to go into some pure Payne's Grey now. I'm going to just touch it with a bit of that matte medium. I'm just going to strengthen up a couple of darks here and there. There and here, and there and here, and here and there. Just to get some of those outcrops to come forward to touch. Now we did say we were going to put a waterfall in here. I don't know whether to put the waterfall on here. I could have it there coming down and then it in that and then coming down. I suppose I could do it that way. There you go. So just proceed with this method and get these rocks looking the way you want to. So I'm going to do that now. I'm not wasting video time because this could be a little bit lengthy and there's no point in me videoing every single brush stroke, but you get the idea of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to continue building that to a point where I'm happy with it. And yeah, so I'll be back shortly and to take you on to the next stage. So yeah, play with this technique. It's just a way of painting at the end of the day, but I'm hoping that I'm showing you a few different things here and there. So okay, bear with me, I'll be back in just a tick. Okay, so what I want to do now, I've managed to get that rock face looking exactly the way I wanted it. Now it does take some time, so you need to practice that. Now we put the palette knife over the foreground rock face and we've just scraped it down and made some little patterns here and there just to give it some texture. Now what we need to do now is get a brush and go into that, very similar to what we did on the middle one, and then just build up all these now with a brush. So that's brushwork on top again of a palette knife, and then yeah, it'll start to come to life, trust me. So let's get started. So I'm mixing a bit of burnt umber, a little bit of Payne's grey. It's what I got on my palette, just to darken that burnt umber off. And I'm just going to apply that where it's dark on the canvas. And this is quite a thin type of wash, but not a thin wash, it's more of a thin type of paint. Again, we're using our matte medium, and we just follow these lines really that we've already made, darken those up. There's that line there, look, see if we can bring it down there and brush it in. There's a little outcrop there, look, see? We can see that little outcrop that we've made. Well, it's just developed really on itself. Now I'm using a detail brush here. What you could do, you could use a short flat, which might make things a little bit easier. So I've got a number 4 short flat, and so I'm going back into a little bit of burnt umber now, just plain burnt umber. Don't forget that piece is sticking out in front of that, so that's okay. And just a little bit of a scrubbing in motion. I'll bring some raw sienna over into that mix now. So I'm making that mix a bit redder. There we go. Multitude of colours really, because rock faces are all different colours, aren't they? So, and then back into that little bit of that black. So I want to intensify the shadows in there. Look at the painting, because yours is going to be so different to mine. You need to look at your rock face now and see exactly where these marks are going to be. I'm going back into a little bit of Payne's grey now, and I'm going to darken this edge down here. Just scrub this in. And you can get a blending brush if you wanted to blend that through. Get rid of those brush marks. You're not trying to kill what you're doing. You're trying to intensify more of what you're doing. Because with mountains, I find that yes, you've got that distance type of thing going on there, but that's a way back in front of this one. So mountains do tend to be a lot darker in real life. Just pick up a bit of light in there. We're going to have some water coming over here in just a second. Well, that's the plan anyway. Bit of burnt umber in there now. And the key is not to worry too much about detail. Let the detail happen on this type of painting. And try and get these two mountains. I'm going to have water over this, so that I'm not too bothered about that. Okay, I haven't decided exactly where the water is going to come from yet. Scrubbing in a little bit of dark into this corner now. You can see the way I'm using the brush. I'm putting a bit of paint on and then blending it in. A bit of paint on. I'm going to go back into a bit of burnt umber. Bit more Payne's grey. The water's going to, I don't know if this water's going to happen, but we'll get there now, we'll get there. As you can see, it's not detailing as such, because you've got that light colour underneath, which you've worked on with a palette knife. Let's bring a bit of raw sienna back in. You'll inevitably be able to colour that with a darker colour, because it's going to take that on board. So I'm going to mix a bit of Payne's grey and a touch of that white that we made earlier, just to make it a grey. And I'm going to incorporate a little bit of grey now into this, just to break things up a bit. The reason for that is that I want this to be more grey than brown, so if I start bringing in a little bit of grey now, then when I actually put the grey rock in place there, it's not going to look out of place, because you can already see bits of grey here and there. Using the brush on the side. Back into some burnt umber. Just using the paint that's on the brush now, so I'm picking up a dark bit of that grey is automatically coming off the brush, because it didn't pick any more up, it was just the residual amount that was on there. So let's blend that all in together now and see where we go from there. And, I have some sort of a plan in my mind, but 99% of the time when I'm painting like this, it happens. Bit of Payne's grey now back in, darken up. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to proceed with this, and as I did previously, and I'm going to continue building this until I get it to a point that I'm happy with. So and then we can go on to the next stage. Yes. So okay, I think the best thing I got to do now is let that dry for a minute and clean my brushes, get the paint off my hands, and should be back in just a tick. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. Keep an eye out for my weekly updates. Join me on Facebook. They're always there, and they'll let you know what's coming up in that particular week. So may God go with you. I'm Clive from Clive's Art. Take care. Thank you very much, and don't forget to give me that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Bye.